Hi there. Welcome on in to Drinks with Binks. And I am your host, Georgie Binks. And I have not had this for 19 years, and there's a good reason for
Mom,
that.
what
But
are you doing? This is my show, and this is my room. What are you doing? Get out of here.
The lights are on, and I thought, whatever.
What did I say about trying to take over my stuff?
Do I have to leave the tequila?
Hey guys, welcome on in. That, of course, was my mom, Georgie Binks, the original Binks, I guess, in this household. And she has been drinking for a long time, but as she mentioned there, it's all water these days, and for a good reason. Also, for a good reason, I am here in my home. This is my childhood room, if you couldn't tell by the JSB Museum, because I quarantined for 2 weeks. That's a government mandate going from the United States to Canada to make sure that this pandemic does not continue to spread, and this country's been doing a very good job with sort of trying to curtail it as best as possible. But we're also in Canada. There's a lot of great things about this country, and with that, I would love to welcome in someone who is synonymous with Canadian sports broadcasting, a man who is doing personality-driven content and unique interviewing styles before all the kids on TikTok were, and who was with The Score, TSN, and is now making his way in America with Bleacher Report and NBA TV. We've got Cabbie Richards here with us today. Cabbie, thanks so much for joining us. So many people here in Canada, like, they know everything about you, and now, oddly enough, you're in the States.
Yes.
How are you doing?
Not bad. Thank you very much. It's a wonderful introduction. And I gotta say, no matter how old you are, Mom is always the boss. And shout out to her for maintaining the JSB Museum after all these years of as you've been all over the place and working in the United States and different parts of Canada. So kudos to her.
That's a nice way to put it. It's really just hoarding, but we can put a nice bow on it.
That's one way to look at it. Sure, yes, hoarding is.
Enough about me. You're in Vegas right now, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so tell me what you have gone through a lot of changes over the last year. And actually, before we get into all that, because it's going to be a ton, let's celebrate, let's toast with a drink. What are we drinking here today?
I have a Moscow Mule. It's my favorite beverage. These things go down so smoothly. It's the summertime, so I want to enjoy a refreshing drink with you. Unfortunately, I do not have the copper chalice because that's what I pay for when I go to restaurants. But in my own home, I just have a simple glass, which was probably purchased at IKEA. But I cheers to you and Moscow Mules, and thank you very much for having me on JSB.
Cheers. Well, I have a Beatles Yellow Submarine glass, so I think we're both rolling with the garage saleware right now.
Just so delicious.
You're in Vegas, which is awesome to live in. Then pandemic hits. So what's Vegas been like sort of before and then now? So
Bleacher Report, who I work for, we have a production office inside the Caesars Palace Casino. So we create content in conjunction with Caesars Palace. So every day you go to the casino and like you're on the second floor, but you walk through the entire casino. We do a lot of our activations from the sports book. So it's just loud. You just get used to the sound and the lights and all the people. And then boom, once Rudy Gobert test positive for the coronavirus, like sports just shuts down like right after that. March Madness tournaments canceled, NBA tournament or NBA season is suspended, NHL, and so on. But so we were trying to find ways to fill the void, and at Bleacher Report, they were like, listen, there is a massive uptick in streaming, both video games and just like everybody was just watching Netflix and everybody was on their screens. The screen time was like 500,000 trillion.
Yeah.
Like, we're doing this all day. So we're trying to find ways to fill the void. So we did a couple of like simulation like Madden Sims, we did some other activations, just trying to get into that attention economy because the audience was there and people were spending time on their phones or their computers. We were just trying to tap into like, hey, can you, these eyeballs, you guys want to come?
Yeah, look over here.
We're doing over here? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it was, some things were successful, some things weren't.
Well, yeah, that's so much to go through, right? When you move to a new country, new job, and a global pandemic hits, and you're in a sports gambling industry, which needs sports as well. So we've got a whole lot more I want to ask you about and to talk with you about on the show here today. We've got Cabbie Richards, Bleacher Report, also Canadian icon, legend here with us on Drinks with Binks. Don't go anywhere.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Jamel Hill, and I had drinks, with Binks, and I'm still standing, I'm sitting. See, that should let you know how drunk I am. Drinks with Binks.
Hey guys, welcome back into Drinks with Binks. I'm JSB in my home room that has not changed forever. But someone who has changed, at least locations and jobs, is our guest here today. What a segue. This is Cabbie Richards here on the show. Now, Cabbie, we were talking about Vegas, gambling town. We mentioned before that, like, you've been so well known for your interviews and for your unique bits and all this personality stuff, but betting, kind of a little bit of a different stream. What made 100%. You want to go into, sort of lean into this realm?
Yeah, so I joined the betting portfolio. So BR's got, kicks, hoops, gridiron, football, betting, gaming. So I'm a novice bettor, and they were preparing a show called the BR Betting Show, which was like Sunday, a weekly NFL show, and they needed a co-host. And I got the call on my wedding day, and I was just getting a fade on my roof, and an executive from Turner called, "Hey, you want to come?" I was like, "Yes, can we talk on Monday? Because I'm getting married today." And then I flew down a few days later. So I got married on a Friday because it's cheaper. Got married on a Friday. I was on a plane Wednesday. I got the gig the next Wednesday, and then I was there. So then, it was about, I got the gig like 3 weeks before the NFL season. So I'm a huge football fan. So I was already kind of tuned in to the season. But I was unaware of how intricate the betting world is, and the language and ways to look at trends, because I think about the game from a fan's perspective. So I think about defenses and schemes and personnel, obviously. But bettors bet the numbers; they don't bet the teams. So that was it was always some points of emphasis, the things I had to learn when I was there. So I really once she said, "Hey, do you want to audition for this show with Bleacher Report?" That's kind of what I heard. And for many years, I was professionally jealous of the speed and the content that it would, this Instagram account would create. Because every time there was a sick Odell Beckham Jr. catch, or a Patrick Mahomes no-look pass, or LeBron can drop he can summon the gods on some crazy dunk. BR had a post and some animation or some cool text. Immediately, I was like, do these guys have 5,000 ninjas in some castle? Just constantly designing things. How are they so fast responding to moments that happen in the culture seemingly with the snap of a finger? So that was the thing that lured me away from TSN. And I had a great gig at TSN. I got to interview a bunch of athletes and using my particular style of interviewing, which is 80 parts obnoxious, 15 parts obtrusive, and 5 parts it's interesting.
When you say obnoxious, for those out there who don't know, one of the things that stands out, which was sort of your calling card, was how close you got to people, right?
Physically, yes. Yeah, the physical
very,
distance.
very close. So what? Yes. Okay, so how would you why did you do that kind of stuff, and how would you how did it help, or how did it become sort of your shtick in a way?
It was a disarming mechanism. So a lot of times I put my arms around athletes. These guys are never touched ever unless they're competing in football. Baseball players, they're high fives. It's the only time there's any kind of contact unless there's a play at the plate. Basketball players, there's some physicality. Hockey, obviously. But I would invade their personal space to make it uncomfortable, and maybe the audience thought that was funny. But then the reactions I would get from it were great. I would always I would always hug Kobe Bryant. And in every interview, it was like a goal of mine to either make him laugh or at the end to get a hug from him. And he never wanted to, but then he would, I'd be relentless, not just in the fact that I wanted to hug him, but in the questions or whatever. But he would then, let me have one at the very end. But it was just a disarming mechanism because interviewers generally stand at a distance. They'll put a microphone in a pool in a scrum of reporters, and they'll kind of have a conversation like this. But I always wanted to make them feel like we were friends, and this is the way I would have a conversation with my dudes, whether I was asking about sneakers or best taco spots, or can I see some of the pictures on your phone. Before that was like, before Drake said she gonna get upset if she scrolls to the left. There was one time Lamar Odom, and this dude, there were zero names attached to these phone numbers. It was just all phone numbers, okay? So we're scrolling through. And generally, when you have a phone, there are names. Like a normal person would have 100, 200, 300 contacts. Jules, I'm not there for 7 minutes. We were just scrolling up his phone. And then you pick, and then the image and then the image and out it was as though I came home and there was a giant bowl of peanut M&Ms sitting waiting for me on the couch. Like, what? That's what it was like looking at Lamar Odom's phone and just seeing all this candy in
that
the
is
era
wild.
where it was a different time. It's a different time.
But Cab, how would you even get to that point to being able to see those numbers?
That's a good question. It's because when I was interviewing these players, I wouldn't ask them about game stories or the X's and O's. It was all I wanted to do was find out more about them, and I wanted to amplify their personalities by asking questions way out of left field, lighthearted stuff, where they can lower their guards, which is the most important thing, and then trust me, because I wasn't there with any kind of agenda. I wasn't trying to ask about a concussion or any controversy. I was like, what's the go-to meal you make at 2:15 a.m. when you've had a few adult beverages? Or, asking about a group chat, or who's the guy on the team that's always on their phone. Just regular people stuff. I tried to make them as accessible in a way to the audience as regular people, because they are regular people. They just have extraordinary talent, and they've worked 49,000 times harder at that talent than the rest of us have in any facet of our lives.
Right. Well, you make it sound very simple and easy, but a lot of people try to do what you do and what you've done for many years and have failed at it. And even just the fun, simple questions can rub a lot of the players the wrong way, and they kind of don't like the shtick. But I do remember when you were describing this when I was with the Anaheim Ducks. I remember we were in Minnesota and you were there in the locker room, and you could tell the guys were all excited, oh, Cabbie's here, what's he got up his sleeve? Something different, right? Than just all of us every day asking about the line changes and all that kind of stuff. So
and that's hard. That's hard. Your job was hard.
That stuff was boring because it was just what happened, what's going to happen is pretty much the thing. But what you did is sort of been now everyone's trying to do it. So we're trying to make sure everyone knows that the receipts are here on Cabbie First. But we got a whole lot more to come with Cabbie Richards here with us on the show from Bleacher Report. Don't go anywhere. This is Drinks with Binks. Hey guys, welcome back to Drinks with Binks. I'm JSP. We've got Cabbie here from Bleacher Report, who is doing a ton of different shows right now. You have one that is launched on NBA BetStream on NBA TV app with actually one of our former guests on our show, friend of the show, Tim Doyle.
Yes!
Also, Kelly Stewart.
Yes!
I worked with her at CBS Sports HQ. It's literally everyone is connected, and some of our former guests are friends with you, which we'll get into in a bit. But you've got a great cast of characters, and I will have to say, I actually talked to Tim before this show came out, and he was like, yeah, I did an audition with this guy, Cabbie, from Canada, and he's a Bleacher, and Kelly, and he's like, I gotta tell you, he organized the audition really well. We killed the audition because of Cabbie. So I don't know what you did in the audition, but it seems like you guys got the good chemistry to get this bad boy off the ground?
Well, Tim is like, as you know, he's very easy to work with. He's kind of a big kid, but he has like so much basketball knowledge, obviously having played in the Big Ten and just watching the game as much as he does. And then Kelly is an absolute G when it comes to anything betting. Like, she can get up to par to like expert level in like a day because she has so many ninjas or so much access to information, and then just goes into her like Alan in The Hangover, seeing the algorithms, in front of her eyes, and then it's raining down like the Matrix rain, and then boom, she's already dialed in. So we're doing this. Yeah. So we're doing this like this digital, second screen experience, but calling basketball games from a betting perspective, which as I said, I'm a novice. So it's a little bit more difficult for me because I'm not that familiar with the terminology, and it's also, so they're great teammates. So it's just like pass the rock over here to Tim, boom, over to Kelly, alley-oop to Tim, bounce pass to Kelly. So I just kind of sit back and I learn, and the audience is, there are some specific like hardcore bettors, and then I think from the NBA, they want to appeal to a kind of a general audience. So it's like an interesting, intricate balance between like hardcore nerds and then the G-rated audience who just has an interest in betting.
Right. So then you are that value then. So then like the perspective you have is kind of like people that are curious about this, that are like, I don't want to feel overwhelmed, but I want to be here. Hopefully
that's the goal. But there are times where I get lost in my nerddom too, because I'm watching particular players. I mean, we just did Philadelphia and Portland, so I'm all in on like Damian Lillard and McCollum, and then like Ben Simmons gets injured, so we're on that thread, and we're talking about Embiid and Coach Brett Brown. So sometimes I do get lost in the weeds, but it's working with those two are great because we can sort of pull back from 30,000 feet, but then also go right back into the weeds. So it's been cool.
The numbers and stuff. Yeah, and Tim's very great with analogies and sort of making it accessible to people. He helped me when I was at CBS Sports HQ. I didn't really understand anything, and he'd be like, okay, during March Madness last year, like, all right, this is like, Batman and Robin, or like, it's like this and this. I actually don't know gambling that well, but I think everyone's getting into it like a whole lot more. And you mentioned with NBA, I'm very curious right now, like with the bubble and with no real home court advantage and sort of the impending, like the pandemic is still outside there and it could change at any point. How does that affect like the lines and the point totals and all that kind of stuff?
That's a little harder to quantify. And also like a player's motivation or like revenge series is also hard to quantify. So that's a tough one to answer. I mean, we're in unprecedented times, and this is an unprecedented tournament. So this could be the year. And if you're a bettor, why not take a chance on, I don't know, betting the Pacers versus the Jazz in the finals? Like, it could happen. What happens? I mean, the NBA's been incredible, and there have been no positive tests so far once the players enter the bubble, and it's been tremendous. So knock on wood, that continues. But if, two guys go across the street to get some Chick-fil-A, or they, like Lou Will, like, maybe you guys feel like wings? Go do a little road trip to Magic City in Atlanta, get some wings, and bring the virus in. Like, what if 4 people get it on a team? Like, it's 3 of your starters and 1 of your role players, or so that's not written in that 113-page document. So who knows what will happen in that regard? But as far as the on-court product goes, if everything remains as it is right now and no positive tests, it's just so hard to tell. You're right. There's the virtual fans, and some of the game elements are similar to their home buildings, but guys are just going back to their hotel rooms after the game. There's no travel. There's no and they're probably used to their beds at this point, which is also an advantage for the home teams when the road team had to come in, sleep at a hotel, get up early, go practice, all that kind of stuff. So at this point, they're in a routine. I don't know, Jules. It's anybody's guess. I'm taking a couple of long shots. I mean, we're both from Canada, so I'm rocking with my Raptors as the defending NBA champions, and they play great defense, got great cohesion, an incredible coach, great leaders. But out of the West, I might take a flyer on like the Houston Rockets. Like none of the dudes are over 6'7", but that experiment could work. Because why? We're in a pandemic. Who knows?
It's almost like, you would sort of err on the side of chaos because 2020 and like so many of these different variables. So then, I'd be, it would be, I guess, a nightmare for the house then in terms of like Vegas being like understanding where everything sort of lies. But I do find it interesting when you mentioned sort of taking a chance. You just cashed in pretty big, I think, right? With the PGA Championship?
Yeah. Thank you. Great. Nice. I took it's like a 30-1 long shot on this kid named Colin Morikawa. So I did like a little bit of research. We do this show called Group Chat, which is trying to be very similar to actual group chats without the, the photos and the certain language that you can't actually, broadcast on any platform whatsoever. But I took a shot on this kid who's like 23. He's like an upcoming, well, now he's a stud because he won a major. He's got that on his resume. And it's the first time I ever hit a long shot, 30-1. And, there was a moment where you get the notification on your phone. It's like, do you want to cash out? It's like, bleep that. I'm going to let it ride. It's a golf event. It's a 4-day tournament. I made it this far. It's like Sunday, like the 12th or 13th hole. And, okay, full disclosure, I only put $50 on the bet. So I only won $1,500. Okay.
Hey, so then how much do you win then?
I won $1,500. So $1,550. Right. You win your money back. And so that's significant for me.
That's huge. That's huge.
As a dude that's not out here like some of the people that I work with that are betting.
Degenerates,
They're betting like $300 on what are called like Nerfies, okay? This is the level of degenerate. So a Nerfie is a no-run first inning. So if there are no runs scored in the first inning of a baseball game, guys are betting like $300 on these but multiple wagers, Jules, in the course of a day. Like there are 14 baseball games every day, and guys are doing like 8 to 10 Nerfies in a day. Wow. I'm like, are you guys are trying to legitimately go bankrupt.
Is that good? Is that a good bet?
No, like it's so, baseball is the most random of all the sports. Like the ball can go off a glove. The difference between a home run and a double is like 4 inches, depending on where it hits the top of the wall or the wall. Like, no, it's not a good bet.
It's the future. It's the present. I haven't done it yet because I'm like,
at all?
I'm like too lazy to hook up my account, like, no, you get that point where you're like, I gotta go find that information and I'm out.
Yeah. Okay, I feel
like my laziness is too much to be a degenerate gambler, which like I don't know which is worse.
It's not enough to just go on gut feelings, because then your bank account is going to be zero in no time.
Well, it already is there, so we don't have to worry about that. We got a whole lot more to come with Cabbie here on Drinks with Binks. He's from Bleacher Report, NBA TV. Let's go, baby. We'll be back after this.
What's up, everybody? My name's Jackie Redmond, and I had non-alcoholic Drinks with Binks. It was still fun.
Boo. Hey guys, welcome on back to Drinks with Binks. We've got Cabbie from Bleacher Report here, and for those of us in Canada, it's just known as Cabbie, like Madonna. It's just always Cabbie on the street was always sort of your big thing when you were when we were growing up, when we were kids, watching Cabbie on the street. And I found it funny. I was telling, because our producers were talking about how we had Adnan Verk on the show. You guys work together at The Score. He is now with Zone and MLB and NHL Network. And then we've had Renee Young, who, as we know, is Renee Paquette.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, and I was thinking, I'm like, you and Renee were actually at The Score when I interned. Like, I wasn't really, I guess I just like hung around you guys for like a month. And I was so stiff and like trying to be super, like, I was like trying to be a reporter, I guess. It was
but you were
some
like
of the
20.
worst tape. Pardon me?
Yeah, but you were like 20 years old. Like, you're still a baby. So yeah.
I was wearing like full-on H&M pantsuits every day to like intern at The Score. I was like, I'm going to be a reporter here someday. It wasn't. Anyway, you were, you did this at the Score, then you mentioned TSN, Cabbie Presents, just so well known, and then you decided to go to Bleacher Report, and you're in the U.S., and like the Tragically Hip know, the band, going from Canada to the U.S. sometimes completely different worlds. What's it been like being in the U.S. now, like when you are a household name in Canada, but not necessarily in the U.S.? Like, what's that been
definitely
like?
Definitely not. No. I'm like a small fish in a very large pond. It's cool. Like, I do enjoy working at Bleacher, and I'm learning a lot of things. I just have sort of these wide eyes and big ears, just trying to absorb as much as I am, or as much as I can. Much like yourself, when you were an intern, when you're 20 and you're out there, you're probably doing post-game and pre-game at like at Blue Jays games, because the Scottum was right down the street from our office. You probably did Raptors and Leafs stuff too, because the ACC, or the Air Canada Center, now Scotiabank Arena, was right down the street from our office. And everybody at the Score at the time was between like 20 and 30. We were all very young. And shout out to, as you mentioned, Adnan Verk and Renee Young, who also lives in Las Vegas. We've been meeting to go get a juice for about
that's so
4
odd.
months.
You guys are both there,
Yeah. But we haven't been able to connect. But it's the people who are aware of my previous work are mostly Canadians. It's like a handful of random Americans that really love hockey who know who I am. And then in Vegas, because Canadians travel so well, we're all over the world.
Yeah.
Like the one or two will pop up in the sports book, and I might get a what's up or whatever. But it's okay. It's okay to like start, to restart as far as visibility goes, and working on totally different content.
Yeah, I know what you mean. We kind of all, I likened it to when on Halloween, it's like USA was always sort of like the house that gave out the big chocolate bars, where you're like, oh
Excellent
man, like,
analogy.
I gotta go there, like that's the best. But now it's kind of like the house that like gives out the apples that are kind of like what, and then you go home and your parents are like, don't eat that, there's probably a razor blade in there. So things have changed a little bit though over the years, and like you're now in the US during one of the most like combustible times in history.
Yes.
What is it like being a Canadian in having just moved to the US?
Well, experiencing 2 pandemics has been interesting. Obviously, COVID-19, and then the racial uprising. As a Black person from Canada living in the United States, it's I'm very aware of where I am and who I am at all times, and how like tensions are at an all-time high. And there are certain things that I do, and I'm generally not really this serious of a person, but in this particular area, like there are things I do that I call survival mode. For instance, I always think about what I'm wearing before I leave my house. So if I'm going out in the daytime, I might maybe wear a hoodie, but I would never wear one at night. And if I go out at nighttime, if I go for a walk, or if I'm just like trying to get to Target or Walgreens Walgreens open 24 hours, but I always wear light colored clothes, just because I don't want to take the chance that somebody's having a bad day. I live in Nevada. It's an open carry state. When I drive my car, I'm at 10 and 2 like every grandma, because I just don't have the luxury of interacting with someone who has got some preconceived notion of who I am before I open my mouth. Just looking at me, I'm 6 feet tall, 240. I'm a big guy, so I'm hyper aware of my surroundings and where I am, and just things like that, which you would probably, well, maybe you would consider, because you're a woman and you have to have similar, like when you leave your house at certain times of the day. Like
no,
if you're
but
going
it's
at night,
not the same. Yeah, I would have no idea. Yeah.
Right. So watching and observing how the culture is changing, I feel like there is a positive winds of change which are occurring, and there's a tidal wave of support for breaking down some of the systemic apparatuses in place in this country, which have been built over many, many decades and a couple of centuries. So that apparatus is going to take a long time to change, but people are calling for change. So that part is promising, but we're right in the thick of it right now. So it's been an interesting experience as a Canadian living here during this time.
Right. And I got to ask though, like, did you ever feel that way in Canada? I know racism isn't just in the United States, but
right.
The level of what you're feeling, did you ever feel that in Canada?
No, I didn't have fear. And when I lived in Toronto, I was always aware of where I was, and aware of, like, I might wear a hoodie at night, and be aware of it, but here it's just heightened. So a little bit back home, and there were certain things, like in the media, that we were really always portrayed that well, and there weren't a lot of, like, Black people working in sports. And when I was covering hockey, I was often the only, unless I was covering the Flyers and Wayne Simmons was there, or going in Montreal and PK Subban was there, or I'm in, Florida where Anthony Stewart played, or whatever, or Kevin Weeks in New York. There weren't other faces that looked like mine. So a couple of times I felt a little bit of, like, the bristle of, like, the old boys club, which still exists in hockey. I think that is changing slowly, but and certainly my style was completely different. I was in there with sneakers, T-shirts, baseball caps, asking about Jay-Z and burger spots, and, like, who gets killed in Madden on the team, like total non-traditional questions. Mm-hmm. So there were times where, and there are some other things that I won't get into here, but there are times I felt it, the heat of racism back home. Yeah. Specifically working in hockey. Yes, hockey is extremely white. I was even like, well, I mean, it's all pictures of me and I'm a white girl, but the Toronto Maple Leafs is just looking at the roster, and it's like everyone's white in hockey. But to your point, there is a bit of a different vibe in the United States with the level of, I think, that we're seeing racism that has been entrenched in so many of the different systems and inspired now by people that are in charge. But at the same token as what you said, we're seeing a very strong movement in the right direction. We have a whole lot more we want to talk about with Cabbie, but we got to take this quick break. We'll be back on Drinks with Binks with some Moscow Mules. So we'll see you in a second.
Hey, I'm Mina Kimes. I'm on Drinks with Binks with JSB. Imagine being so cool, you go by initials. MMK. Okay.
Hey guys, welcome back to Drinks with Binks. We've got Cabbie here from Bleacher Report, and earlier on in the show we were discussing your unique interviewing style, and that was extremely apparent with none other than Kobe Bryant. And you were, so fortunate enough to be able to interview him like over 20 times or something like that. And
yeah.
How would you describe your relationship with Kobe?
Love, hate. Love, I loved him, and I don't know if he enjoyed all of our interactions. No, but it was a lot of fun. He was very generous with his time when he didn't have to be. I came around at a time where he wasn't as popular. The first time I interviewed him was in 2005, and this is a year after his trial in Eagle, Colorado, and he'd been dropped by a few of his sponsors. Nike was the only sponsor that stuck with him. And then since I wasn't there with any kind of agenda, like the first question I asked him was about bandwagon fans in LA. And then I asked him to draw a bandwagon and he wouldn't do it. And then I asked him to stay at his house. And that thread of me being sort of this presumptuous and this obnoxious like house guest, like every time I saw him, Kobe, can I stay at your house? What's your address? What's your number? Sorry, you got to give me the new number because the old number doesn't work. Playfully, of course, this was just a bit that we had, but it read through all of our interviews. And then as I got to spend more time each time, then I involved props. And props was like was a tool, a device that I leaned on a lot in my interviews because it gave us something to do. And Jimmy Fallon does it expertly on his show, like when he plays games with celebrities, because that humanizes celebrities. And I try to do that with with these sports stars because nobody can hit a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. No regular person walking down the street can hit a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, or throw an 80-yard bomb to Tyreek Hill on the money off his back foot like Patrick Mahomes can. So with Kobe, a few things. I brought him like CDs once for a sleepover. I brought pillows. I brought him pajamas once. I cut him a key to my house.
Wow.
What else?
He was like, so he played along with the bit.
Yeah.
Like he was.
Thankfully, and every time. So there came a point where I started I would pitch him ideas. So I'd write okay, this is the bit. Like every time it was like two new bits, and he would generally shoot them down. It involved some Saturday Night Live type of sketch, and I'm not a comedy writer, but I tried to push myself to write something that I would hope he would find funny. He's like, nah, no, I won't do that one. Every time I was like, nah. So there was one time, Jules, that he is like, okay, the bit was, and I wish we got to do this, was what if Kobe Bryant never went to the NBA? What if he went to Duke and he was a student at Duke? And in the bit, him and I were roommates. So I presented him with these images, basically my 15-second elevator pitch. I'm like, Kobe, we're roommates at Duke in your first year. And he's like, all right, this is funny because that would bleep and kill you. So then I was like, should I write this one? He's like, okay, yeah, write it and send it to me. I was like, all right, boom, furious. I'm Kermit the Frog, that Kermit the Frog meme, writer, you know what I mean? And then I think I've got a couple of jokes. So I'm like, all right, I'm also Kermit the Frog, send it to you, back to the typewriter. I had to do 7 revisions, Jules. The first one I sent, which I had already revised probably 8 times before I sent it to Molly Carter. And Molly Carter is a boss. She runs Kobe Inc. So Molly's response was, you have to change the ending. At the end, the bit was the lights are off, we have girls in our room, and then there's, the RA comes by to do a curfew check, and then there's a little bit of giggling, and she's like, you have to change it. I'm like, we're college students. We're 18. Of course there's going to be girls in the bit. So I wrote 5 more, and then eventually just radio silence. I never.
Oh, man.
I was like, okay, this is all right. Let me talk to him. Let's try to figure out if it works in the schedule. But at the time, Kobe was building a studio, towards the end of his career. He was, he wrote Dear Basketball. He got John, I think he's Sir John L. Williams, the composer to score his animated short. He has he created an investment fund with a partner in New York for $100 million. Kobe was turning into this gigantuan media company, and he was writing books. So there wasn't enough time for my stupid little Saturday Night Live digital short where we're roommates at Duke. But
it would have been great though had it just gotten to him. Who knows? You could have had an Oscar at this point.
Maybe we could have won a Webby, or
I know,
whatever the version of the crappiest YouTube videos are. Perhaps.
Hey, Webbies, we lost out on a Webby, all right?
No, Webbies are legit. I'm saying.
But you know what? We got a telly, so it's in the mail coming. I already bought it. But we got to take a quick break. We'll have a whole lot more with Cabbie Richards from Bleacher Report after this on Drinks with Binks.
I'm Michael Smith, and I'm proud to say that I had drinks with Binks. 6 of them motherfuckers to be exact.
Welcome back into Drinks with Binks. I'm JSB, and I'm so thrilled to be joined by Canadian sports broadcasting icon, Cabbie Richards, who's now in the U.S. with Bleacher Report. And Cabbie, we were just talking about your relationship with Kobe Bryant and the bits that you did. You were the only person that was granted access into his helicopter, right, for a sketch?
Yeah.
For that to be, obviously the way that, the tragedy went down, how surreal has that and everything been for you?
It was devastating. And a friend called. He's like, have you checked the internet today? I was like, nah. He's like, go to TMZ. And I was like, ooh. Went and I saw it. I couldn't believe it. And I just kept refreshing because I wanted more information. And then, but once I knew that story broke on TMZ, I knew it was legit. And then when I was speaking with my producer, Dave Crixt, that day and over the next few days, we had discussed like being in Kobe's helicopter. This was like 10 years earlier.
Yeah.
But we were the first to be like, not the first to discover. Actually, maybe we did discover that he had a helicopter because I was hosting this video game event. It was him versus Carmelo. And that's when I pitched the idea of doing a bit in a helicopter. And he agreed to it. And you may have been at the score at the time. This is 2009, 2010. But we didn't know he had a helicopter. So I'm not sure and maybe it was like Arash Markazi had written a bit about Kobe travels to games in helicopters, but then we actually got to do it. So anyway, back to the tragedy. I believe it was January 26th or January 27th. It was, and just like disbelief. It was the, like many people, I felt so much pain just knowing that Gigi and the other people were in the helicopter as well. And I'm not a parent. I can imagine as a parent, you would do literally anything. You would give your own life to save your child's life. But in that situation, he couldn't. So just thinking about what that must have been like also caused me a lot of pain, as I'm sure it's caused millions of people, certainly parents who could empathize with being in that kind of a situation. Yeah, it was tough. It was really, really tough. And then, go ahead, Jules.
No, keep going.
Sorry, I was just going to say quickly, I got to go to his memorial a month later at the Staples Center. And the amazing thing about it, Jules, is like nobody was on their phones. It was a 2-hour memorial. And I think there was maybe a couple of flickers at the beginning because Beyonce opened the service. Actually, no, for the Queen, there were no phones out. But maybe
is it when Michael Jordan was there or no?
No, the phones weren't out. But I'm saying everybody there was just very present and not trying to document this experience to show people. It was like they were just all experiencing the same energy, and it was the perfect celebration of his life. And it was 20,000 people in the Staples Center. And then there were these luminaries. Obviously, Michael was there. Beyonce sang. Christina Aguilera sang. Alicia Keys sang. Shaq was funny. I mean, who else? Coach Ariyama spoke. Sabrina Ionescu spoke. Obviously, Vanessa spoke. It was just incredible. I'm looking across at Kanye, Kim, Jay-Z, and Beyonce, and then Michael Jordan. And then across from me, I'm looking at Shaq and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. A few rows in front of me are Steph Curry and Aisha, Dwayne Wade, Gabrielle Union. To my left are all of the Spurs, Popovich, Duncan, DeMar, Tony Parker. Like, it was incredible to be there, but the service was perfect. It was a perfect celebration of his life, and to be there, to be invited was like it was incredible for me.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine just how surreal it is to have known him that well. And
okay, I should say this: we weren't like on the phone friends. Like, it was very much like reporter athlete. There was still a little bit of a buffer zone. You know what I mean? Like, he kept me at arm's length.
Was he showing you his phone numbers? Does Kobe do that?
He was not. No. That was
okay. That's just Lamar Odom.
People show me their phones, and Kobe, he was not among them. No.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know how you did it with your interviewing style with him, but it's a lot of people try to do that kind of stuff, and like to keep going with it too. And I think maybe that is part of it. It's just like being relentless and kind of not stopping with some of the bits, like the staying at his home and all that, and then it becomes like a fun little joke. But I do have one question though. So we're still in 2020, which is like odd that this happened at the beginning of the year. Right. How do you think? Like, what do you think Kobe would have thought of everything that has happened since he died?
Wow, that's... he would have used his platform for good. I mean, he was already using his platform to amplify women's sports. He was a huge advocate for women's soccer. He had a really great friendship with Sydney Leroux. And Megan Rapinoe was an absolute icon. But, like, Kobe... his entire adult life, he was in the spotlight. But then he was like, I want my kids to be in the spotlight. He took a back seat, and he was, Natalia was playing volleyball. Gigi was obviously playing basketball. and he was like such a champion for women's basketball. It's amazing to see like actual NBA stars attend WNBA games. They're wearing their jerseys. Like the support that fraternity of basketball players has made, you don't see it in any other sport. You don't see hockey dudes wearing jerseys of MPP or soccer players, like Canadian soccer players wearing a Christine Sinclair jersey or Rapinoe jersey. Like there might be some tweets, but like actual spending time and going to the events. I mean, maybe it's harder for soccer because the season is 12 months. But you know what I'm saying?
They could do a better job.
Exactly. And Kobe was there at games. Chris Paul, LeBron, like D-Wade, like the biggest stars in that game and in the NBA are there supporting their sisters in the WNBA. Kobe, right now, I'm sure he would have been in the streets protesting. He would have used his platform for, to call attention to bail reform or police reform, police union reform. I'm positive he would have been on that side of history.
Yeah, his legacy already just so much, but he's an incredible person and player too. And you were very fortunate to get to know him. And many of us would never understand what that's like. So I'm can't imagine that the last couple of months have been very difficult for you. We've got to get to a quick break, but we have a bit more to come with Cabbie here on Drinks with Binks. Guys, don't go anywhere. All right, guys, we've had an awesome time drinking and binking here with Cabbie Richards, Canadian icon, legend Cabbie on the street, who is now just taking over the Vegas gambling world with Bleacher Report and NBA TV. And Cab, tell us where everyone can find you next.
So we have a group chat on Bleacher Report. It's in the Bleacher Report app every Wednesday. And as we're a few weeks away from the NFL season where the BR betting show returns, that'll be on Sunday, also in the Bleacher Report app. And we'll see about this, what the NBA wants as far as betting during the playoffs go. That's on NBA.com. It's the app. You can get the NBA app, and it's called the NBA Bet Stream. So I hope you guys can check out one of those three projects. And if not, then just I'm on Twitter acting stupid, and I'm posting funny pictures on Instagram.
I love it.
Thank
you. Got the personality. You got the cash to bet. You're making big bets. We're betting on the Raptors to win it all.
Yes, we are, Jules.
That's what's happening. We are doing this. We the North and we the Drinks with Binks. Thanks, guys, for watching us here. And make sure you check out Fubo Sports on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And, of course, this is available on Spotify and wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, because we just dominate, like, every space. That's
there you go.
What you do when you're drinking and binking. See you later, guys, and thank you, Cabbie.